On Fox News recently, Tucker Carlson was promoting a nonsense remdesivir. Donald Trump, you mentioned a nonsense story regarding young people and how they are unlikely to spread coronavirus. And immediately afterwards, he got a tall glass of shut-up juice, as Cenk Uygur would say. So let's take a look.
And now to the latest science. There is new evidence that young children do not spread the coronavirus. Not what we thought. Dr. Mark Siegel is a Fox Medical contributor and NYU Langone professor. Doctor, thanks for coming on tonight.
Tucker, I want to cut through the news and get to the science of this, which is that 78 studies out of the United Kingdom show that children, especially under the age of 10, are not very likely to get COVID-19 or to spread it. But one of the authors of that study says he's being a little bit misinterpreted, and the Centers for Disease Control has said that 1% to 2% of the cases, looking at 150,000 cases, were children under the age of 18. The real truth here is, and a China study showed that 90% of children have asymptomatic cases. So, Tucker, they appear to have a protein in the lungs that protects them from severe disease. And almost all of the children who get this are either asymptomatic or have mild cases. But it is not true that children don't get it, and it is not true that they can't spread it.
It's fine. They're gonna ban Clash anyway.
Oh, that was delicious. I wonder which booker got fired for accidentally booking someone with credibility on Tucker Carlson's show.
It's like, look, we know why the guy was just booked to say, yup, it's totally safe to send the kids who are walking barrels of disease about. And the only reason he was booked was because earlier this week, Chris Tucker was like, it's totally safe to send the kids back. He either didn't think about the implications of what he was saying, or he's an actual moron. He was criticized, including on my show. I'm going to take credit for this. I think he probably booked that guy because of me. And so he thought he had found someone to protect him, but he's too stupid to actually vet either the study or the guest. And so he ends up looking like an idiot once again. Why do people talk about him as if he's an intelligent person?
About Tucker Carlson?
Yes!
I don't know. I don't know. Every once in a while, he'll do a segment where he pretends like he cares about people working in America, but he doesn't. It's usually his little gateway to sharing his disgusting fascistic, thoughts on immigration and people of color and disenfranchised people in the country. So I never fall for it. Tucker Carlson. Look, I actually think that he's not a dumb person. I think that he has a dumb face and he makes a dumb face on his show. But I think that, like, strategically speaking, he has like a sophisticated way of bringing in an audience by pretending like he cares about an unjust economic system. But then he weaves in like the anti-immigrant stuff. He's a hateful
100%.
person.
Yeah, and that's why it's on us, because he can occasionally cover what his actual goal is, which is to make sure that as many hard-right, economic, fiscal, conservative Republicans stay in office as long as possible.
And also
he can pretend that he's a populist. He's going to support every Republican president for the rest of his life. He is himself a literal heir. He's royalty in the American sense, so, like, spare me that he cares about the working man. When was the last time you saw a working class American brought onto his show? Anyway, that's why it's on us to make sure that we continue to combat that. In general, people get the idea that Fox is not fair and balanced, thanks to the work of, Media Matters and a lot of organizations and the Young Turks over literally years. We've gotten to that point. But that doesn't mean that there aren't some personalities that have still been able to maintain the veneer of critical thought, independence, and all of that. We have to fight back against it, even though I hate doing it because I hate his face. I think it's a waste of time. And honestly, people don't even really care about it. It's not like the videos do well, but he is an incredibly dangerous person, and so it is our journalistic responsibility to provide a check on him. When he's spending the last few days doing shows saying quarantines didn't help anyone, we don't need to socially distance, fighting back against the tiny little bits of protection that we have against the coronavirus, he has been working to undermine the confidence of in the American public. He's an incredibly dangerous person.
Yeah, and what's even more crazy is he's not the most dangerous person on Fox News. Sean Hannity is. Sean Hannity is actually worse.
Oh, Buck,
in the beginning of this pandemic, Tucker Carlson kind of took it seriously. Obviously, he's become more and more reckless in his coverage of coronavirus. But Sean Hannity has actually been worse. There was an actual study done looking into what's likely to happen to viewers who watch Sean Hannity versus Tucker Carlson. And since Tucker Carlson's been a liar from the very beginning, his audience is more likely to contract and die from the virus. This is an actual study being done.
Yeah.
So it's just something to know. If you're terrified by the misinformation coming from people like Tucker Carlson, just know that there are people on that cable news channel who are actually worse. And they talk to the president on a Kushner says that Trump's government has done an excellent job in responding effectively to the pandemic, to coronavirus, even as Trump just said that ingesting bleach might be a treatment for coronavirus. That was a story that broke last week. Now, I don't know. I don't want to put words in his mouth. Let's hear what Jared Kushner has to say.
Number one, where's the national strategy? That's from Governor Newsom on 60 Minutes and Senator Klobuchar on one of the morning shows. And number two, if you'd answer that, and number two is, why did you guys collapse the pandemic office when you guys took over, possibly to save money? Do you want to answer both of them?
One friendly.
Sure. So the pandemic office, that was an NSC situation, but there's a lot of different parts of the government that are responsible for that, and all of those have been functioning. And again, we're on the other side of the medical aspect of this, and I think that we've achieved all the different milestones that are needed. So the government, federal government, rose to the challenge, and this is a great success story. And I think that that's really, what needs to be told.
We have more than 60,000 Americans who have died from the virus and more than 1 million cases of coronavirus as we speak. And Jared Kushner has referred to this as a success story. So if you've lost a loved one because of Trump's incompetence and unwillingness to take the virus seriously from the beginning, just know that the response from the Trump administration is success story.
Yeah.
Need to use your drone to
In
locate a
Benghazi, we lost 4 people. They investigated it 9 times and found that no one did anything wrong. Here we've lost over 60,000 Americans. And they say
Drone
great
has located a
success
bomb.
story. Great success story. Look, Jared Kushner is a lightweight. Every time he speaks, it screams across lightweight. But he's a Trump clone. His daddy got him into Harvard, just like Trump's daddy got him into Wharton. His dad had to. If you don't know how this works, there's like flat out bribery at the top colleges. Some of the kids that are not rich, that earn their way into those colleges, are the smartest people you'll ever meet. Hardest working people you'll ever meet. They're amazing because there's such few spots for them. Because a lot of the spots are reserved for legacy. So if your papa went to that school, you have a much better chance. But your papa had to donate. If he doesn't donate, then you don't get in. And how much you donate determines how stupid you are, how stupid your kids are. So if your kid's really bright and he probably would have gotten anyway, a couple $1,000s will do it. But if your kid's a total moron, you have to get into the millions. Jared's dad had to pay $2 million to get him in. That's how
what? I didn't know it was that much. I didn't know it was $2 million.
Yeah.
How much did his dad spend to go to prison? And is Jared Kushner going to get there too? That would be a great legacy story.
Yeah, no, Harvard says, no. It's just coincidentally, right before we admitted his
Sorry.
kid, he happened to give $2 million to Harvard, but it was just a total coincidence. To be fair to Jared Kushner, his dad got a 2-for-1. I think he got his brother in too. So that's how this game is played in America, in this meritocracy, okay? And so that's why Kushner says things like that, because no one has ever checked his privileged ass. So he's walked around on a cloud like, oh, junior class, I went to Harvard! And he bought the most expensive building in the country. Total fail. It was one of the worst real estate investments in American history. But since they were already rich and powerful, everyone came to bail him out, etc. He's still not fully bailed out of that. He has a record of miserable failure in real estate, just like Donald Trump. And so that's why he doesn't know that you're not supposed to go on national television and say, 60,000 dead. It's a great success story, just like my success at Harvard.
This split screen is everything, Jake. When you're making that smug face, there was literally a picture of him making a smug face.
Yeah,
That was
because
amazing.
his whole life, nobody ever told him, hey, Jared, you got into Harvard because your dad bribed them. You're a schmuck. Nobody, because everybody kisses the ass of the rich. Nobody ever told him, hey, Jared, you literally made the worst real estate deal in American history. You beat your father-in-law for being dumber in real estate. That's unprecedented, right? And so he doesn't, what he's doing is he feels like he's a lord. So if you notice the way that he framed that statement to Fox, he said, that is the story that must be told, as if he's ordering a butler what to do. Now, remember, you're asking me an impertinent question, Butler. And so, Alfred, the story that must be told is that this is a group.
Unfortunately, anytime you do a story about real censorship in the country, it's being done by people on the right, especially when it comes to school boards in conservative states. Alaska is no exception, where the school board has overwhelmingly voted to take certain classic books out of public school curriculum. So let me give you the examples of the books that they're targeting. I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings by Maya Angelou, Catch-22 by Joseph Heller, The Things They Carried by Tim O'Brien, The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald, and Invisible Man by Ralph Ellison were all taken off an approved list of works that teachers at the Mat-Su Borough School District may use for instruction. So Jim Hart, who is the school board vice president, said, if I were to read these in a corporate environment, in an office environment, I would be dragged into an equal opportunity complaint proceeding. No, you wouldn't. No,
you wouldn't.
The question is, why? He is an idiot. Why is this acceptable in one environment and not another? It's acceptable in all environments. These are classic books. They're like, what are you talking about? What is this man talking about? This school district is a disaster. So they're worried, by the way, of anti-white messaging. That was one of the things cited. So for instance, Caged Bird was derided for anti-white messaging. Gatsby and Things were loaded with sexual references. In Invisible Man has bad language, very naughty. And Catch-22 includes violence, according to the school district. Several books that were not removed from classrooms also came under harsh criticism and scrutiny. So The Jungle, which was one of my favorite books when I was in high school, and A Christmas Carol could be interpreted as advocating for socialism.
They did not say that.
They did. They did.
A Christmas Carol?
Yep.
Was it the goose? Was it too generous an offering?
No, this is crazy. This is crazy. I think they included The Christmas Carol as a potential book on the chopping block, so they would, like, in their minds, like, hide their conservatism. They're not doing a good job, okay? Because these are books that they criticize, but they have not been taken off the list of approved books.
Okay.
No, this is crazy. This type of censorship should infuriate people. We saw this happen in Texas, where many of these books, by the way, school textbooks are published. They wanted to take certain figures out of these social studies books, you know, people like Thurgood Marshall, and they wanted to replace him with like the Phyllis Schlaflys of the world.
Yeah.
You know, because they want to indoctrinate kids with their nonsense conservatism. And I have no doubt that that's what's taking place in Alaska right now. It's disgusting.
Yeah, it's when we talk about this sort of thing, the fact that this is still going on, that this isn't, you know, a story that was published in 1953 that we mistakenly found today, that there are still people who are like, the thing that's going to corrupt our kids is reading Catch-22 or something. Like, we would be lucky for kids to spend a couple minutes reading literally any of those books versus the alternatives, which, like, there's harsher language in Candy Crush. Like, what are you talking about? On it, like, we can have debates about issues. That would be novel because that never happens anymore. But that's not what we're having right here. What you're seeing here, the sort of conservatism that would still want to ban these books, that's like the Tucker Carlson and the Ben Shapiro, like morally superior conservatism that you want to be able to have a philosophical debate, but you can't, because sometimes the other side are just, and I apologize, stupid little babies. That's effectively what it is. You're being dumb little infants. You're too stupid to be alive in 2020 with power over people's lives, to be controlling them in this way. How could you possibly think that that is the problem that's facing America? Is that people are what? They're going to learn about the beginnings of investigative journalism, or they're going to be exposed to other cultures? Like, that's But that's the fight that they are waging. And honestly, I would say it's because that's the fight they want to be waging. They don't want to have us pushing ahead, not just on the social stuff, but on economic policy as well. They want to keep us mired in the social and political conflicts of 1920 to 1950.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks. We really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships.
The president of El Salvador has issued an order authorizing the police and military to use excessive force, lethal force. One of those conservatives you could turn to if you're looking for gang members who they need to defend themselves from. At the same time, the president has also ordered all prisons in the country to keep gang members, inmates, prisoners in these small cells, which have now been blocked off. The bars have been blocked off with sheets of metal so the prisoners can't see through the cells. The videos, the pictures that are coming out of El Salvador are terrifying. They're jarring because, of course, it's just a slap in the face to any type of social distancing guidelines in the middle of this pandemic. And it really does put these inmates in jeopardy. It'll spread the virus. We already do know that in the United States, for instance, the virus has been spreading rapidly among inmates, and there's been very little protection for them. El Salvador is also no exception to that. So let's take a quick look at some of these images from Reuters. Some of these images have been released by the government in El Salvador, showing just how close the prisoners are to one another. They're not wearing masks. They're barely even wearing any clothing. They're just in their underwear as they're shackled to one another. And the reason why this type of reaction or response has come from the government is because after some period of time where homicides had actually gone down in El Salvador, last weekend there was a spike, and the president believes that the inmates ordered some of these homicides or some of these murders. I don't know what evidence he has for that, but I do know that not every inmate is guilty of what he's accusing them of doing, and what he's doing with these inmates basically goes against their own constitution, their own rules. But this is the kind of reaction, unfortunately, the people of El Salvador seem to favor because the approval rating for the president is incredibly high.
Yeah, first on El Salvador, and then a super important prison study that shows you that those folks that you just saw in that picture are very, very likely to get coronavirus. These get tough governments, a lot of times the way that they cut down on crime is by doing secret deals with drug dealers and the gangs. So I don't know that that's what happened in El Salvador, but there are experts who believe that that is very possible in El Salvador. So it could be that the president is really mad that they violated that deal, and that's why he's cracking down on them like this. So a lot of times it's toughness on that side. Reagan did this. He also destroyed El Salvador as well. But what he did was he'd say, oh my God, we never negotiate with terrorists. We're super tough on the terrorists. And then he'd cut a secret deal with the Iranians and give them weapons in exchange for hostages. So he negotiated with terrorists. He gave them weapons. He did everything that he said he wasn't going to do. And that's what a lot of right-wing tough guys do. And then they brag about how they kept the numbers down. But a lot of times it's just by solidifying the leadership of those gangs in the first place. So we don't really know what brought the crime down. We do know there was a spike, that's true, recently, and that is why the president is cracking down. Now, in terms of the prison study that I began to tell you about for the members last night in our post game, that's an extra half hour of the show, tyt.com/join to get that half hour, or it's the $4.99 level if you click the join button underneath this video on YouTube. But I want to give you the details. 4 different prisons in 4 different states decided they were going to test most of their inmates to see what they would get. Well, it turns out they found out, holy cow, not almost everyone, but a giant percentage of the inmates have coronavirus. That's the bad news. The good news is an enormous percentage of them show no symptoms. And I don't mean no symptoms for now. It appears, no, they have coronavirus and it doesn't affect them. So if these results are correct and they can be verified by other studies, it is of monumental importance. So let me give you some of the quick numbers. There's so many, but I'll stick with 2 examples. In Ohio, there's Marion Correctional Institution. 2,300 inmates were tested. Of them, 2,028 were positive. almost all of them that were tested were positive. It spreads like wildfire in closed spaces. Now, the great news, only 95% showed symptoms. So, you know, I don't know how long they've had it. I don't know if the 2,300 tested were random or not. So you can't take it completely to the bank, but a lot of the prisons showing the same thing. Let's go to Michigan's Lakeland Correctional Facility. 971 were tested. 642 of them had coronavirus. That's 66% rate. And when you look at it, that number jumps out at you. It's about 2/3 of the prisoners in all the prisons that were tested have coronavirus. When they tested all the prisoners. Okay, most of the prisons don't do that. But combined, those 4 prisons, around 95, 96% of the ones that had coronavirus had no symptoms at all. So, what is the conclusion of that? If those studies hold, okay, because without big enough clinical trials, you don't know it for sure. But the conclusions appear to be, if it's true, that this disease is way more contagious than we realize. Than even we realize at this late date. It spreads so quickly. It's unbelievable. Nothing like we've ever seen. On the other hand, most people who have it, it's no big deal. Now, for the ones who get it and get sick, it's a giant deal. And so that's why over 56,000 Americans have died, over 200,000 people have died across the world. But the fatality rate is probably much lower than we realize. But since it spreads so quickly, that's why it's led to so many deaths. That's why when I look at that picture in El Salvador, good night, Irene, those guys are almost certainly going to get coronavirus.
There have been multiple reports about the detention centers that have put asylum seekers in cages, and they're living in squalor. They're unsanitary conditions to be in, especially in the middle of a pandemic. Even if the pandemic weren't happening, those conditions do scream human rights abuses. And, you know, our president gets high marks when it comes to the Republican Party, Republican voters, especially when it comes to the way that he treats undocumented immigrants and people who are literally fleeing violence in their own countries to seek safety here in the United States. Those people have been placed in prisons, essentially prisons, in these detention centers, and dozens of them have already died, not necessarily from coronavirus, but from other illnesses. And that's what we're dealing with. So we need to be critical not only of how other countries are dealing with these inmates, but how we're dealing with people we place in detention.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks.
For fear-mongering about death panels when it comes to single-payer health care or the Affordable Care Act. But now with the coronavirus in full force and with all these stay-at-home orders, all of a sudden, Ben Shapiro kind of interested in serving on one of those death panels. Take a look.
Located a diffuser, destroy it.
Wants to say the obvious truth, which is that
Judy,
we're all making
here's what I'm playing with you guys.
deductions about what are the costs in terms of how many human lives, how many years of life, because that is an actual issue in actuarial tables, right? If somebody who is 81 dies of COVID-19, that is not the same thing as somebody who is 30 dying of COVID-19. I mean, if this were killing children, everyone would be in for lockdown forever. That's the reality, right? If a bunch of 5-year-olds were dying of COVID-19 and people were saying get back to work, I'd be like, nope, I'm not letting my 5-year-old die. If grandma dies in a nursing home at age 81, that's tragic and it's terrible. Also, life expectancy in the United States is 80. So that is not the same thing. In moral terms, you want to save every life you can. At the same time, to pretend that it is of the same calculation, the age of the person, no public policy acts like that. Not a single public policy in American life acts like that.
So, okay, now we're doing like human value judgments, right? So 81-year-olds, not as valuable as kids. Are 81-year-olds as valuable as zygotes? Are we having this discussion right now? And by the way, to further contextualize where this conversation came from, they're discussing opening the state back up. You know, he's in California, getting people back out there to work. And it's like, yeah, I mean, you know, like 81-year-olds. I mean, yeah, it would be tragic. And we want to be moral here. But like, it's not like my 5-year-old's going to die or anything. It's just amazing.
I wonder how his grandparents feel about that if they're still alive. Okay, or his parents. I don't know. Are his parents, how old are they? Because my dad's 82 years old, and I'm going to protect his life under any and all circumstances. And so, I don't know, maybe Ben has parents he doesn't care about. He doesn't give a damn about it. He's like, well, if they die, I don't really care.
You know what, Ben? Life doesn't care about your feelings, okay?
Yeah, that's right. You know, killing people doesn't care about your feelings. Well, I guess that's true. So he's saying if your parents, your grandparents die, he don't really care. I don't know if it's true for his. Again, I don't know his family situation. So look, these are if a Democrat in defending the Affordable Care Act had said, look, it's true when the government runs the programs, more old people will die. Now they wouldn't say that because that's not true. It's not at all applicable to Affordable Care Act. But if it was true and they had said it, Ben Shapiro would have lost his mind. Oh my God, they're gonna let people die. I'm pro-life.
What about
I'm pro-life? How could they do this? And in fact, they did say it. They called it death panels when there were no death panels, when it wasn't even true. Now here they are, brazenly saying, so what if an 81-year-old died? You just heard it. You just saw the video with your own eyes. Because if I described it to you, you wouldn't believe me. But they're saying, yeah, I mean, I don't know Ben's elders, but he actually has kids. He's like, oh, that would affect me. My kids would affect me. No, then I would stay home for a long time. But if your dad's going to die or your mom's going to die, I don't care about that at all. Let's go back out there. Amazing.
And it's always the people who can do their jobs out of the safety in their own homes, urging people to get back to work. And I think that should say something, right? So we're in a safe place. Cenk and I can do our jobs at home, but we fully understand the risk that people put themselves in, the risk people put their families in when they go out there and they work. You know, the first responders, the essential workers, all of those people are risking their lives. And by the way, in many cases, aren't being provided the safety gear they need in order to prevent contracting this virus, aren't getting paid hazard pay, which they absolutely should get paid on top of increased wages. But like, the very people on like CNBC or Fox News who get to do like all of their work and earn all of their money out of the safety of their own homes, telling other people to put their lives at risk just so, I don't know what their point is. Oftentimes it's because they want their, you know, stock portfolios to keep going up. But like, don't trust them. Just don't trust them because they're not actually thinking about you. They don't actually care about you. If they really believe the things that they were saying, then they would go out there. They would go, you know, help out as an essential worker, but they're not, because it's not about protecting lives. It's about protecting whatever other incentive they have. It's just disgusting.
Yeah, it's a great point because he doesn't work on an assembly line. He works from home, so it's not going to affect him at all. He's not saying I should go back out there. He's saying you should go back out there. You should go work in a meat packing plant and endanger your life. So just simple thing here, and I know that he was talking to Dave Rubin, so the dial of ideas had been turned to hot. But if you've got those ideas, I need you to back them up. And so anyone who says we should go out there before the government and the scientists and the doctors say we should, no problem, you first. Go work at an Amazon warehouse filled with hundreds of other people in that enclosed space for just one day, then I'll believe you mean it.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks. I really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to
Jones managed to put out a video that made Barstool News refer to it as the most disturbing video known to man. Now, if you're familiar with Barstool News, that means something. So let's take a look at what he had to say.
I'll admit it. I'll eat my neighbors. I'm not letting my kids die. I'm just going to be honest. My superpower is being honest. I've extrapolated this out, and I won't have to for a few years since I got food and stuff. But I'm literally looking at my neighbors down going, I'm ready to hang them up, and gut them, and skin them, and chop them up. And you know what? I'm ready. My daughters aren't starving to death. I'll eat my neighbors. See, my superpower is being honest. I'll eat your ass. I will.
1 op 4 remaining.
Combat model, optimal self-sufficiency. Probably the leader.
Eliminated.
The point is have you thought about that yet? Because I'm somebody that thought I could fix this, and I'm starting to think about having to eat my neighbors. You think I like sizing up my neighbor, how I'm going to haul him up by a chain and chop his ass up? I'll do it. My children aren't going hungry. I will eat your ass. And that's why I want the globalists to know. I will eat your ass first.
Now, John, I did some digging into this. This is a serious story, and I did find that Alex Jones was in fact in band when he was in high school. However, he is a bit rusty with the trombone these days.
Oh, God. Okay. Well, you know, I started off my day having a crazy person yell at me through a video camera that he's going to eat my ass over and over and over. Now I got that in my head. Thanks a lot for that. That was, like, I understand this is why people watch him. It's for content like that, so he's going to do what he's going to do. But there were a few issues that I had with it. So he kept alternating between, I will eat your ass, and I'm not going to let my kids starve. But he never says, I'm going to have my kids eat humans. He seems really focused on what he's going to eat, with the excuse being, I don't want my kids to starve. It kind of seems like you guys still have food, your kids are eating it, but you're eating humans? I don't know why. He says, do you think I like sizing up my neighbor? You're doing it pretty early in this. Like, you're not starving, but you're already thinking about doing it. That seems sort of weird. And he also says, this is combat mode, optimal self-sufficiency. To kill your neighbors and eat them? I got news for you, dude. You live in Texas, there's room. Grow broccoli, you weirdo. You have years of food and you don't have time to set up farms? You can't grow your own food, you can murder and cannibalize a person? How is that self-sufficient? It literally relies on the bodies of other people. Grow corn, you weirdo.
Yeah, look, he's not well. I mean, okay, now the serious part of the story. He's clearly not well. He needs help, clearly. Like, his mind goes to incredibly dark places. I mean, food is still readily available. I mean, I can walk into a grocery store right now, you know, obviously in a responsible way with a mask, and purchase almost anything I need or want. I mean, even toilet paper is available now. Like, why is he freaking out about food? He has a stockpile of food, which he made clear in that video, but then his mind immediately goes to, I gotta kill my neighbor, I gotta gut them, I gotta hang them and gut them, and then, you know, eat their ass, as he said.
Yeah,
like, it's just...
He never switched it up and said eat their arms. It was always their ass from the beginning.
I'll do it!
Imagine you're his neighbor right now and you see that going viral. How do you feel about your property value or your ass, honestly, at this point? And also, like, most importantly, because I realized that some people just watch him for the funsies of it, to get a little laugh, you know, but some people also believe him, and he's leading protests in Texas. So he believes that we need Donald Trump. Donald Trump is our savior. We need conservative Supreme Court justices. We got to have all this. It's 3 years into almost uniform Republican control over the country, and he's starting to have to think about killing and eating his neighbors, and he doesn't see a bit of a mismatch there. That when he gets the government he wants, it's Mad Max time. Isn't that weird? Shouldn't that be a red flag? Did you have to think about eating your neighbor's ass under Obama? No, we didn't get close to cannibalism then. Shouldn't that be a bit of a wake-up call?
Yeah, you know, I don't know. Maybe he was thinking about it during Obama. I mean, he's like one of these doomsday prepper kind of guys, right? Isn't he always like selling like doomsday prepping stuff? Like that's his whole business model, like fear-mongering about like how everyone's gonna come to get you. How everything's a red flag, not a red flag, a false flag. Like he needs help. Like he's not well.
You know,
you
raised a great point there. Do we know that immediately after that segment he didn't transition into, and here's why you need to buy my disaster seeds? It might be
here's
that.
Here's why you need to buy Alex Jones branded enemas. Like definitely. He definitely started immediately after that.
I think you're probably right. That's probably the solution there. That's disgusting. There was a really good John Oliver takedown a couple years ago of the products that he sells. I'm predicting that if there's a Sunday John Oliver, he's probably going to touch on the eating your ass.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks. Really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive
Donald Trump's longtime buddies, a casino mogul by the name of Phil Ruffin. He's the owner of Treasure Island Hotel and Casino, as well as half of the Trump International Las Vegas Hotel. He's saying that He's doing good. I mean, yeah, the casinos are closed. I mean, sure, he's still got some operating costs, and that's kind of expensive. But he can shut down for like 20 years, according to him. And he doesn't have to worry about any of that nasty government aid. Except he's a liar, and I'll tell you why. So he said the following. We have zero income coming in and a lot of expenses, but we don't plan on taking any loans. That's not just no, that's hell no. I don't want their money. If you don't need the money, don't take it. We have plenty of cash. I could go 20 years, maybe. Now keep in mind that he actually furloughed the vast majority of his employees. He furloughed 4,400 out of 5,500 employees. The union representing these employees had to fight and negotiate to at least continue their health care coverage while they're furloughed. So they luckily did get that concession. But when this Ruffin guy says that he doesn't need the government aid, keep in mind that like we are still subsidizing his business, and we're doing so through providing the furloughed employees the stimulus check, which he seems to be in favor of. He says of these employees, hopefully they'll get a $1,200 check soon. And then for employees who end up filing for unemployment, you fired them, right, or furloughed them. I'm not sure if you qualify if you're furloughed, to be fair. But if any of your employees now have to rely on unemployment, that's government aid that we, the taxpayers, are providing because you decided to let them go and you're refusing to pay them. If you have all this money where you can stay shut down for 20 years, why don't you pay your employees?
It seemed like, you know, we were talking about, I think on Wednesday, we were talking about how the rich are starting to worry that there might either be some sort of socialist revolution or perhaps a violent revolution. They're worried about that because of how income inequality has grown. This guy seems to be like, yeah, let's see if we can make that happen. You know how much money I got? I can go 20 years. I don't even care about this. Hope you enjoy your $1,200 check, huh? Maybe get a sandwich or two. I'm going to be fine. I could go decades and be like, honestly, he seems to be like goading people into creating him effigies of him or whatever. I don't know. And honestly, I don't even know that it's true. He says, you know, it's not just a no, it's a hell no. I don't want their money, all of that. Maybe, but I also know, what was it, like 3 days ago, Charlie Kirk put out a statement saying, you know, my organization, we could have gotten like $1.2 million, but I didn't want it because I'm independent. And like a day later it came out, no, they applied for the money. We don't know if they were, we don't know if they were rejected or if they just decided after applying, you know what, no, we take it back. But they definitely applied for it and then put out a statement saying they would never take it under any circumstances. And now we don't know that this guy is as phony as a Charlie Kirk. That is a very high bar to pass. But I don't just take his word for it that he's not getting any bailout.
Oh, I agree with you. And we'll look into it to see if he applied. But what we do know is, on one hand, he's saying, like, I am such a competent business owner that I can go 20 years like this and it'll be fine. I'm not stressing about it. On the other hand, though, he's urging businesses to open up as soon as possible. He was quoted as saying, "We're trying to get open as fast as we can. No one's hurting worse than we are. Our losses are huge, and that's okay. That's part of the deal. The government shut us down, and our people understand that." So on one hand, he's like, no, I'm cool. 20 years, not a big deal. On the other hand, he's like, we gotta open right away. I mean, okay, we gotta open. Like, he is a phony. But unlike Charlie Kirk, he actually did build something. Whereas Charlie Kirk is just a paid propagandist and hasn't even managed to graduate college. Like, he hasn't done anything.
Is that true?
Yeah, it's true. He's very sensitive about it. Yeah, well, don't ask him. But luckily, he does live like a capitalist every single day.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks. Really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to...
Donald Trump is feuding with his campaign manager, which calls for another edition of As the White House Turns.
Recover the diffuser.
Made some very big mistakes. I asked for his resignation.
I'm disappointed in the Attorney General.
So CNN's reporting that Donald Trump is very much concerned about his approval rating. It has been dipping thanks to his response to coronavirus. I'm guessing, suggesting that ingesting bleach didn't really work out so well for him. And instead of taking responsibility for how he's mishandled things, he decided to lash out on his campaign manager, Brad Parscale. Now, I'm not someone who really likes or respects Parscale, so I'm amused by this story. But according to Jeremy Diamond over at CNN, things got a little heated at one point. Let's take a look at what he had to say.
Has grown increasingly unnerved in the last week about his re-election prospects. Aides have presented him with data showing that his poll numbers are sliding in some of those key battleground states and that he could be headed for defeat against former Vice President Joe Biden if things continue the way that they are. Amid all of that, Jake, the stress of that information affecting the president, it seems, and he let it out in an angry outburst with Brad Parscale, the president's campaign manager. I'm told that the president was huddling with some of his aides on Friday at the White House Friday evening, and that Brad Parscale was on the phone. The president berated him, I'm told, for his own sliding poll numbers, as well as and even threatened to sue Parscale. Now, it's not clear exactly how serious the president was about that threat.
So he threatened to sue his campaign manager over his, poll numbers in battleground states because it's Parscale's fault. And how, what law are you going to use or cite in order to, the guy's crazy. The guy's crazy. And, Parscale is not a good guy, so I don't really care. But how do you sign on to work for someone like Donald Trump, who's unhinged, has no loyalty for anyone or toward anyone? And by the way, at one point, Trump was asked about those poll numbers, and he's like, I don't believe the polls. I don't believe the polls. I'm doing great. Parscale and other people who work on the campaign also told Trump that they think that maybe it's not a good idea to do these daily press briefings, and Trump did not like that.
Yeah, so look, this is great news, not just for Democrats, but for the country and the planet, because that means Trump is not going to listen to anything that might help him. In order to run a campaign effectively, you have to see when your numbers dip, when they rise. You have to be able to adjust, especially on the level that he's at, because for smaller campaigns, it's very, very hard to move the numbers. But when it's a presidential campaign, there's so much media that the numbers move fairly easily and often. And it allows you a lot of time and ability to adjust if you actually pay attention. But Trump is incapable of doing that. I mean, all the Democrats had to do was nominate a shoe, and the shoe would win. In fact, he'd be a shoe in if you will. All we needed was net zero.
No, just someone who can put a sentence together and isn't dealing with the sexual assault allegation. That's all we need. These moderate Democrats think that we're trying to replace Biden with Bernie Sanders. Yeah, that's a dream, but I know that's not going to happen. Just replace him with someone who functions. That's it.
We're just looking for a net zero. That's all we're looking for, because Trump is in a world of trouble, okay? Now, first of all, yelling at your campaign manager, apparently normal. I still find it insane, but apparently that's a thing that candidates do all the time. Okay, whatever. Number two, threatening to sue your campaign manager. I don't even know what that means. Okay, that's okay. Fine. Great. Do it now. That'd be amazing if you sued your own campaign manager as the campaign is starting. But most importantly, him ignoring the polls and saying he doesn't believe in polls and living in that alternate reality is great news. That the polls aren't lying. And another excuse he had was, if it is true, my poll numbers are going down because the country isn't getting enough of me because I'm not doing the rallies. If they saw me more, my numbers would go up. Okay. That's not what's happening at all. The more they see of you in these press conferences, the more they realize you're Bozo the Clown. So what Parscale made a mistake there, and so did Ronald McDonald, who's the head of the RNC, fine, Ronald McDaniel. They went in and talked to him like he was an adult. And they said, oh, your poll numbers are down, and it's obviously because you told people to drink Clorox. And so don't do that because we don't want to lose the election. And he's like, that's it, I'm thinking about firing you and suing you for saying things that are true, when obviously I'm like the greatest person that ever lived, and they're not seeing me enough. That's the real problem. I can't believe you didn't realize that, Ronald McDonald. And where's the burglar anyway? Or hamburger.
Okay, I gotta give you some more of what people close to Trump have told CNN. So in one quote, a Republican close to the White House said, he's pissed because he knows he messed up in those briefings, right? So, look, I think that Trump plays this game where he knows, right? Like, he knows, but he's mad and he's angry at himself, and the only thing he knows how to do is, rather than like maybe pivot and change his behavior, he just lashes out at people around him who are trying to help him. Which is like, again, I know I make this point a lot, and I'm sorry for being repetitive, but how do you sign on to work for that guy? How? Like, it sounds like the worst job in the world. Like, even if I were some crazy power-hungry person, which I'm clearly not, but if I were, right, I still wouldn't work for him, because it's the most counterproductive thing to do for a power-driven person. Eventually, he's gonna snipe you, and it's over. Your career's over. You're just an amash.
No, I hear you, Anna, but in this case, Parscale's made an unbelievable amount of money. And remember we did that story about his Ferraris or whatever sports car he has, and what is it? His firm is charged $50 million or something. Look, they're all having a feast at the expense of Republican donors. If you're a giant company giving money to Republicans, it makes sense. They're going to give you billions and trillions of dollars in return. So buying off Parscale and financing his Ferraris and apartments makes sense. If you're a regular person in America and you're giving money to the Trump campaign, it's going towards Trump properties, it's going to Parscale's Ferraris, it's going to that type of stuff. So Parscale, I get it. He's like, oh yeah, okay, yell at me, you're going to sue me, later you're going to blame me for the election, you lose. Whatever, dude. I already got the 3 apartments. I already took home the money, and every day he's taking home more money is another day that he thinks is a win.
Okay, I got to give you one more quote from Trump. He said, I believe the people of this country are smart, and I don't think that they will put a man in who's incompetent. Which he's referencing Joe Biden. No, you guys, like, he has no self-awareness. He really genuinely thinks he's the smartest person on the planet. He thinks he's kind of a smart person.
Yeah, I'm like a smart person. I'm a very stable genius. I'm actually known for 2 things in life. One is being smart person, like a smart person, and the other is for being mentally stable. Like, you think I'm making that up, like I did with a Hamburglar? No, he actually said those things. Look, in the old days, in the beginning of Trump's term, we used to kid around and we had a poll: who's dumber, Trump or Bush? You forget how stupid Bush was. No, not close, because Bush had enough sense to know he was stupid. Trump has no idea. And like, he's like, I heard, you take disinfectant and you put it in the lungs. In 1 minute, it's gone. Yeah, maybe the lungs gone in a minute. It's gone. It wipes out coronavirus. They're like, Mr. President, you're an idiot. No way! That's the smartest thing I ever said. You're dumb for not realizing how smart I am. No. No strategy. Nothing. The guy's the dumbest guy you've ever met. I don't know why this weird quasi-respect for Parscale. It's kind of a funny thing to say.
No.
No. Because the other Republicans, this is a total BS theory. Very outside speculation. The other Republicans, to me, they look like, of course, sir, of course, Clorox, injected in the nose, it's a great idea, oh my God, yes, sir. Parscale has that look on his face like, I know I'm robbing you. I'm robbing you, right? And so I feel like he understands the game a little bit better than the rest. This dude used to be like nobody in the middle of Texas, fiddling around fixing his own computer. Next thing you know, Trump picked him out of nowhere, and now he's the campaign manager, and every day he's got to be thinking, this is a miracle. How did I rob people of all this money? I'm going to keep it going for as long as I can, but of course this guy's a clown.
I don't know how Parscale didn't get cast for Lord of the Rings, because they would have saved a lot of money on makeup. Like, just cast that guy. He's good.
It appears that new marching orders have gone out to the Republican Party, and it's pretty simple. The strategy will be attack China. And eventually, there might be some sort of subtle forms of it, but the early attempts have been a bit stumbling. Here is Tom Cotton giving it his best try.
Scandal to me that we have trained so many of the Chinese Communist Party's brightest minds to go back to China to compete for our jobs, to take our business, and ultimately to steal our property and design weapons and other devices that can be used against the American people. So I think we need to take a very hard look at the visas that we give to Chinese nationals to come to the United States to study, especially at the postgraduate level in advanced scientific and technological fields. You know, if Chinese students want to come here and study Shakespeare and the Federalist Papers, that's what they need to learn from America. They don't need to learn quantum computing and artificial intelligence from America.
Okay, so we're going to have the details about the marching orders for just a second, but I just wanted to give us a chance to respond specifically to what Tom Cotton said. There was a lot that was stupid there, but I do want to give him credit for pointing out that if you want to learn about Shakespeare, where better to go than a country he wasn't born in, never lived in, and didn't die in, like America.
The country didn't even exist then.
No.
But chance of Tom Cotton knowing that. Well, let's put it this way. Chinese students are more likely to know that than Tom Cotton. Okay, so look, we're about to tell you the avowedly racist strategy that the Republicans have adopted one more time, that Tom Cotton is the first to road test, along with a couple of other Republicans in the country, specifically about Cotton's comments. This is the kind of ignorance that the right wing loves, and they see the polling apparently is working well for them on this. So they're like, oh, I got it. What if we bottle up the whole world and we bottle up information and we make it seem like, you know, the Chinese are particularly odious, and when they come to our universities to learn like anyone else, they're doing it in some nefarious plot to steal our information by attending college. Mm-hmm. No, you're just trying to rile people up against Chinese in general. And this whole reference to the Chinese Communist Party, which is what they're supposed to say according to the talking points that they got, just super silly. How about the North Korean Communist Party, whose leader that Donald Trump fell in love with? How about that? So it's all fake. Every part of it is fake. Now let's explain some of the racism too.
Actually, a weird connection there is that the North Korean leader actually wrote most of the plays commonly attributed to Shakespeare. So there is a connection there. But anyway, here's basically what we know about the strategy. So it stresses three main lines of assault. That China caused the virus by covering it up, that Democrats are soft on China, and that Republicans will, quote, push for sanctions on China for its role in spreading this pandemic. And it says specifically, according to this memo, don't defend Trump other than the China travel ban, attack China. It's always interesting when you say explicitly, like, hey, our president, indefensible. Don't waste your time. Don't defend him. Except on this one thing. Instead, just attack. And I've actually seen a bit more of it happening today, which we'll get to. But let's also briefly mention that while this appears to be sort of an organized strategy on the Republican side that has been rapidly disseminating, multiple different politicians doing this in one day, it's not like you can't find this on the other side too. I mean, Joe Biden had that ad that was sort of implying that Trump hadn't been sufficiently harsh on China. So this sort of xenophobia or trying to make a convenient target to sort of distract people, that's not just going to be Tom Cotton and Donald Trump.
Yeah, we've got other examples in a second. But look, the Republican Party ran on what's called the Southern Strategy for decades. That is, after Lyndon Johnson got the Democrats to pass the Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act, the Republicans sensed an opportunity to get racist votes in the South. This is literal. The head of the Republican Party, two different times, has apologized for running this avowedly racist strategy for decades. So they jumped in and said, oh, these Democrats are the ones trying to give black people rights and freedoms. We're against that. So, hey, racists, come vote for us. That's why they captured the South. Now, which used to be Dixiecrats, who used to be Democrats, now the Republicans took on the mantle of racism. And then they've done it to target other groups at different times. 2004 election, they did anti-gay ballot measures all across the country to rile up hatred against gay people so that people would go out and vote for George W. Bush's re-election, which sorely needed the help because of the disaster of his first term. So here they go back to the well. Now we're not doing it to black people, except our general stance against them in every policy we have. And we're not running a particular political strategy against gay people in this election. We've got a new boogeyman, the Chinese. Okay, Chinese, they're the problem. Later in the memo, they explain, now, look, you'll be charged with racism. You know why they say that? Because they know it's a racist policy. That's why. John, have I ever sent you a memo saying, hey, we're going to do this story that is against this particular ethnic group, and afterwards we'll be charged with racism. So here's your fake talking points on how to combat that.
Not the Chinese specifically. There's a few instances. No, you've never sent me a talking point. Ever.
So it's obvious they know it's racist, and they put out a couple of talking points you're supposed to say about their obviously racist strategy, which is no, we're saying the Chinese, and obviously you'll attack Chinese and other Asian people in America, but we'll say we meant the Chinese Communist Party, of course, the no-good Chinese Communist Party, which, by the way, just gave more trademarks to Ivanka Trump, which we really appreciate, and that's why we made some deals with them on the side. But otherwise, we're so against.
10 seconds to insertion.
Yeah, and let's also bear in mind that this seems to be sort of advice going out to politicians now, and we can expect that as soon as they roll it out, you're going to have posts on Fox that are going to be doubling down on it. But you can never really say exactly who started it, it's the chicken or the egg, because it's been weeks and weeks now of Sean Hannity and Tucker Carlson pushing, calling it the China flu and stuff like that, and saying explicitly that we're not making it enough about the Chinese. So they've been doing that for some time. And I don't have exact quotes, but I've been trying to follow along as we've been doing this. Trump is doing his press conference right now, and he apparently floated in some way some sort of sanctions or reparations that we want to get from China for their role in this. I don't have the details on this, but that would certainly be a new direction to go in.
Okay, two things about that. Number one, they're like, okay, we're going to do sanctions on China. We're doing sanctions all along. It's not because of the pandemic. It's because Trump believes in sanctions. And the coronavirus wasn't around 3 years ago when you started the sanctions. So, but again, facts don't matter because they're Republicans. And if you don't know that by now, you're lying or you're pretending. You know that. You know the Republican Party is not attached to facts. Anyone who thinks otherwise is an absolute fool. Right?
Yeah.
And then in terms of saying, well, China caused the, don't get me wrong, do I think the Chinese government, do I trust their numbers? No. Do I think that they hid a lot about the coronavirus? Absolutely. Is there a smart way to push back against that? Yes. Is it to run your political strategy to defeat Joe Biden and the Democrats? Wait a minute, that has nothing to do with our foreign policy with China. Exactly. Okay. And then in terms of that pushback against China, if it was really about that, you would change some policy, but you already have the sanctions. All you're doing is, this is a 57-page memo saying not our policy, our political strategy is to blame it on China. But if we're doing that, guys, we now have the most cases of coronavirus in the world by a lot. We have over 1 million cases. We crossed that today. And we have 56,000 that are dead already. Triple the second closest country. So the rest of the world can say, oh, under your logic, the whole world is sanctioning America because America is spreading coronavirus worse than any country on the planet. And that's a fact.
Yeah.
So this isn't about any of that. This is just about how do I get racist Republicans to get animated enough to vote for me on election day.
And by the way, I want to read you one other thing that Trump said. We're not going to do a lot on the press conference, but when I saw this, I thought I got to read it. So this is according to Daniel Dale, who live tweets a lot of these press conferences. He says, told that states have reported an increase in people taking disinfectant since his comments last week, Trump says, quote, I can't imagine why. I can't imagine why. Asked if he takes any responsibility, he says, quote, "No, I don't."
To which I say, of course!
But thank you
What
again
does
to the
everyone take
reporters.
Responsibility for?
A few weeks ago, the reporters who were saying, you know, this is a new Trump. This is a somber Trump. It really seems to have sunk in. He really seems to understand this. He's not taking responsibility for telling people to inject themselves with disinfectants. So that's how far he's come, the new presidential Trump.
Yeah, please. All right, and real quick, John, who are some of the other Republicans who now have started saying the Chinese talking points since they all got the memo?
Yeah, so we do have the, Brett, if you could get this ready, we have the Attorney General of Mississippi who is threatening a lawsuit against China.
My role as the Attorney General is to protect all Mississippians, their health, their security, and their prosperity. So by bringing this suit, it allows Mississippians to seek justice and hold China accountable. Because if you look at what they've done, this has been a very malicious, it's been a very dangerous cover-up.
Attorney General, I would never count out or mess with Mississippi. But what are the prospects of this lawsuit against one of the largest countries on the planet who's going to want to just swat it aside, doesn't even take responsibility on the international stage?
Well, that's true. I mean, it's certainly a tough lawsuit. However, it's the right thing to do. We must hold them accountable. They have caused us not to be prepared, and this has damaged us on so many levels. Loss of life, economic damages. And so it's a tough one, but we're going to win because we're going to hold them accountable.
You know, John, that's just a wild coincidence that Republican officials in Mississippi and Republican senators and the president all happen to be saying the same talking points after they all received a memo with those same exact talking points. What a wild coincidence. I'm sure that she's really looking out for the taxpayers of Mississippi, looking to win that lawsuit, which has 0% chance of succeeding. But it does have a good chance of getting people riled up against Asians in this country.
Yeah, and it has like a 1%.
About a month ago, The Onion, which does satire, published this headline. Let's take a quick look. Man just buying one of every cleaning product in case Trump announces its coronavirus cure.
It happened. It happened.
This was a month before Trump's statement about using disinfectants, like injecting disinfectants into the human body in order to cure coronavirus. How insane is that? I mean, honestly, the writers over at The Onion have the most difficult job in the country because no matter how outlandish their headlines are, Trump always manages to outdo it.
Yeah. So
I mean, what they write is tame compared to what Trump says and does.
Yeah, we're going to get to his BS excuse in a second. But, guys, the other folks that are apparently believe in this stuff is the quacks in the right wing. So some preachers, of course, total snake oil salesmen, literally, like Clorox oil salesmen, are saying, oh, you dropped like 6 parts of their miracle bleach into their water. It said they wrote a letter to Trump. They're bragging about it now. He listened to us. These are right-wing scam artists who use religion and right-wing politics to rob people blind. Why? Because they think, well, if you're going to sell a product that doesn't work, you should target the dumbest people in the country. And those are right-wing religious fanatics who will believe anything. And you know who one of those people is? Donald Trump. He's not just the founder of the club. He's also a customer. Okay, he actually believes all these conspiracy theories. So if he did get a letter from these quacks, I don't know if he read it, but if he read it, he probably was like, oh yeah, that's really interesting. Oh yeah. In fact, how do I know? Because he said it on national TV. So
yeah, let me give you more details on that.
That's who the right wing is. That's who the right wing is. There's a whole heap of folks, millions and millions of people who will believe anything. That's why Alex Jones, Donald Trump, all the pastors, Jim Baker, all of them sell you fake miracle cures because they know you're a bunch of schmucks. So look, I think there's a moment where Trump jumped a shark, and I know that moment you think happens 1,000 times, and we've been through this so many times. But there are a couple of moments that resonated with me, and then later we showed you in the polling that it did hurt him, like when he withdrew from northern Iraq and abandoned the Kurds. That hurt him a lot, at least with the military. It dropped like 30 points because of that. Now, it doesn't mean that he doesn't recover some of that later, but it was a body. This is an uppercut. I mean, people are going to be embarrassed to vote for him. I mean, he's a dummy. He's a worldwide dummy, and everybody knows it. And now, like, if your neighbor is going to vote for Trump, like, you get embarrassed. You're like, oh my God, I didn't remember that. Stupid. And that's true.
We've already been there. We've already been there. It doesn't matter. They don't. They're not embarrassed. They don't care.
Anna, this is on an epic scale. So it's hard for them to understand a lot of other things, and a lot of the other stupid things he said, like taking out the coal and cleaning it, and that's what clean coal is. People, they don't know what clean coal is, and that it didn't get a lot of press coverage. This is getting massive press coverage, and everyone knows that you'd have to be mentally, not everybody apparently, but enough Americans know that you'd have to be mentally deranged to drink Clorox, or to think you should infect your lungs.
You don't know Americans. You just don't. We're fighting two different pandemics, okay? One is a virus, the other one is stupidity. And the stupidity is overwhelming. Because, look, and it's not everyone in the country, obviously, but it's a big enough portion of the country that has a voice and will support Donald Trump regardless of anything he does. And they'll find excuses. For instance, Breitbart, that ridiculous publication, they fact-checked what Trump said. And here's what their fact check is. Fact check, no, Trump didn't propose injecting disinfectant. And
bomb carrier?
No, it's amazing. And so what is Trump saying now that there's backup? And this is why I don't think you're right, Cenk, because Trump has this ability to claim that he either didn't say that, or that he was joking, or in this case, that he was just being sarcastic. Take a look.
Comments about injections of disinfectant. They're quite
provocative. I was asking a question sarcastically to reporters to see what would happen. Now, disinfectant for doing this, maybe on the hands, would work. And I was asking a question of the gentleman who was there yesterday, Bill, but I was asking a very sarcastic question to the reporters about disinfectant on the inside. But it does kill it, and it would kill it on the hand, and that would make it much better. That was done in the form of a sarcastic question to
stupid black your medical experts to look into it. Were you being sarcastic with them?
To look into whether or not sun and disinfectant on the hands, but whether or not sun can help us. And that's what I brought out. And I thought it was clear.
That's all it takes. That's all it takes. That's it. No. His supporters, the people who voted for him, they're fine with that. They're fine with that. Cenk, his support among Republican voters is in the mid-90s. That hasn't changed, regardless of what he does.
I'm telling you, this is too over the top. So here's part of the reason that I say that. Now, mainstream media, they think they're tough on Trump, but they still dance. They dance and dance around the issue. Today, they weren't dancing anymore. Anderson Cooper said flat out lie. He did not. He was not sarcastic. He did not direct it to a reporter. He clearly was asking his doctors. They never say that on CNN. They say, "Oh, I can't believe it." They bury their hands. They do all this stuff, but they never say the president is lying. That's an obvious lie. Jake Tapper comes out. Obvious lie. It was not sarcastic. The president is lying. Now, not just CNN. You go over to Fox News. Neil Cavuto, or Fox overall. Neil Cavuto says, clearly lying. The president was not being sarcastic. He clearly was directing to the doctors. And he said, by the way, the other things he suggested, like hydroxychloroquine, they tried it. They tried it at the VA. It killed people. It's like, this is extremely dangerous. Do not listen to the president. So I know that Neil Cavuto has criticized him from time to time on air on Fox, but this is a different level. People don't, they just don't know so many of the other things that he says that are absurd. But everybody knows you don't guzzle Clorox. You warn your kids about it. Even your kids are smart enough to know that. And so...
yeah, I mean, look, there was a phase in this country where everyone was making fun of teenagers who were eating Tide Pods, and then we ended up electing one of them.
Yeah. But it's worse because the people were like, oh my God, let's see if I can survive this. Trump thinks it might be delicious and might cure coronavirus. He is the dumbest of us. And if you want him to be your leader, it's the most pathetic thing I have ever heard.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks.
Somebody
Really
try to pick me
appreciate
up?
it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials.
Is a public health and safety risk. Let's watch.
We hit the body with a tremendous, whether it's ultraviolet or just very powerful light. And I think you said that hasn't been checked, but you're going to test it.
Remaining.
And then I said, supposing you brought the light inside the body, which you can do either through the skin or in some other way. And I think you said you're going to test that too. Sounds interesting. Right, and then I see the disinfectant.
Stupid Blackbeard.
That knocks it out in a minute, 1 minute. And is there a way we can do something like that?
Nobody's telling me.
Injection inside or almost a cleaning, because you see it gets on the lungs and it does a tremendous number on the lungs. So it'd be interesting to check that. So that you're going to have to use medical doctors with. But it sounds interesting to me. So we'll see. But the whole concept of the light, the way it kills it in 1 minute, that's pretty powerful.
So Donald Trump suggesting that UV light and injecting disinfectant into the human body could be a treatment for COVID-19. That is not true. That is incredibly unsafe. It's a terrible thing to even suggest as the president. So why did he say that? Where did it come from? Well, according to Mediaite, Trump was riffing off of some still developing research presented by Bill Bryan, an official from the Science and Technology branch of the Department of Homeland Security, who had just detailed the half-life of the coronavirus under various heat, humidity, and light conditions. Bryan noted that the virus seemed to decay quicker under the ultraviolet light from the sun. And when it came to his statement about disinfectants, he was referring to the virus on surfaces, not in the human body. But we have a moron running the country. I mean, running the country, I think, is a strong way of putting it. Destroying the country. And now places like Maryland are reporting that they have to issue a public statement because so many of their constituents have been contacting local officials to ask about whether they can use disinfectants to treat coronavirus.
Okay, so this is the difference between us and the mainstream media. Today, the New York Times had a story about how some experts say that this could be dangerous. No.
Oh my God.
No.
Oh my God.
It's not some experts.
Heartbeat sensor activated.
Oh my God.
It's all experts. It's all experts. If you drink Clorox or Lysol, you will die. Don't do that. Don't, under any circumstance, do that. Do not inject it. Do not drink it. Do not consume it. And the fact that mainstream media, for a long time, finally, I think this has kind of broken the camel's back a little bit. We'll get to that in a second. But even, including this morning, I don't want to offend Republicans.
Last operator standing.
I'll make it a 50-50 issue.
Sorry, Jaeger, but you're
I want
probably
political
dead.
correctness rather than medical correctness and factual correctness. No, it's not some experts. It's all experts. And secondly, guys, we had the courage to say that Donald Trump is stupid. Now you say, well, Jang, everybody says that now. They didn't say it on day one. They didn't even say it 3 years in. Most of mainstream media still doesn't say it. They're still having a nonsense debate about, well, I mean, what's the strategy behind this? Is this actually a strategy to do distractions? And you know what, Andy, the way that he's playing was based. No, moron of epic proportions. He believes you can nuke a hurricane. He believes that the noise from wind causes cancer. We can go on and on. So when he heard the doctor say, and it's not just doctor, we'll get to that in a second, but hey, you know what? Disinfectant works on surfaces. He's like, oh, cool. Maybe we could use it inside the body. Hey, schmuck, ask it in private. Ask it in private to the doctor. Don't go out in front of all the cameras. Maybe if we put it into the lungs, it does a job on the lungs. Yes, that's true. It does do a job on the lungs. It'll kill you because it'll destroy your lungs and then you will die. So the UV light, Pay attention, schmuck. What the doctors were talking about is you put UV light in a room. It kills the virus in the air. In fact, UV light is a disinfectant, but is dangerous to human beings. It can cause skin cancer and other ailments. What they're talking about is something called far UVC, okay? And that actually can kill the virus but not harm humans. The part where they explain that you can use it because it doesn't harm humans.
Because I was just sitting there, and my camera got jammed. Nobody shot me.
Or a very big light, powerful light into the body.
No mute.
The only person who speaks like that out loud in front of national cameras is a person so stupid they don't even realize they're stupid.
I don't know. Maybe he knows something that we don't know. Maybe he knows something that scientists and doctors don't know. Maybe he should inject himself with bleach, and we should see how that works out. I mean, he has no problem, putting the lives of others at risk constantly by promoting unproven treatments for this virus. It starts off with hydroxychloroquine, which, by the way, we'll talk about it later in the show today. The FDA has finally issued a warning so people don't use it to treat coronavirus. And now he's moved on to this nonsense about using disinfectants, right? Now, of course, later he backpedaled when he realized, maybe there's too much backlash and this could hurt me politically. But before he did that, there were reporters who wanted some clarity on what he was saying. So here's Jonathan Carl, reporter in the press pool, asking about what Trump had just said. He wants some clarification like everyone else. Let's hear what Trump had to say.
You mentioned the idea of cleaners, the bleach and isopropyl alcohol you mentioned. There's no scenario that could be injected into a person, is there? I mean,
I'm here to talk about the findings that we had in the study.
Right
we
there.
don't do that within that lab, our labs.
It wouldn't be through injection. We're talking about almost a complete sterilization of an area. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't work, but it certainly has a big effect if it's on a stationary object.
All right, so the first person you heard from there is Bill Bryan, the researcher I was telling you about earlier, who had talked about disinfectants on surfaces. And so he had to be diplomatic. He had to avoid saying what we can clearly and honestly say, which is Donald Trump's a moron and you shouldn't listen to him when he talks about injecting a disinfectant in your body. But what's hilarious about it is Trump felt the need to interject because I think in that moment he realized how stupid his statement was. I was talking about this, maybe the surfaces. Yeah, we all know that disinfectant works on surfaces, you idiot. Like what? Like this is our lives. This is what our lives have turned into. Just what? The president should be smarter than the smartest American, right? Like, I'm not particularly intelligent. You're not particularly intelligent. We're average human beings, right? I'm saying that the president should be more intelligent than, like, the top physicist in the country. The president is a moron. And it's devastating because people are literally dying as a result. Literally dying right now, at this very moment. It's insane.
Sometimes you have a wild idea in your head, and you wonder about it, right? What do? Maybe you look it up online, you call a friend, you ask. And if your friend is a doctor, for example, and it's a medical question, maybe you ask him. Do you go out and tell everybody, I got this great new idea, we take Windex, and we squeeze it right up our noses, and and that'll cure everything? Do you say it in front of millions and millions of people and risk being embarrassed? Do you think well, disinfectant working on the surface, I don't seem like that'd work on the human body, but maybe, I don't know, maybe I'll ask someone, I'll whisper it in a corner, or I'll ask. No, he doesn't know. He just doesn't know how stupid he is. So he's like, it works on surfaces, so we're going to look into it, and we're going to see what happens. And look, guys, here's another thing the mainstream media won't say and will say. That's why you should watch us, because we're not afraid to tell you things that are true.
Governor Brian Kemp is reopening his state, even though the number of COVID-19 infections and deaths has increased considerably in Georgia. And so he wanted to defend his decision to reopen restaurants, nail salons, hair salons, tattoo parlors. And he tried to do so on Fox News, but he was met with some tough questions. Let's take a look.
5 seconds to go.
This on Monday so we can have time to educate the public and the business owners that this is just not handing them the keys back to go back to where we were. This is a measured approach with a lot of different requirements and guidance that we're going to be putting out.
Can you tell me what you mean by that? So, for instance, is it in Atlanta? If someone wants to get their nails done or their hair done on Friday, or a tattoo, or go to a gym, I mean, these are very close contact kinds of businesses that are the first ones on your list. Can you explain why you would start with those kinds of businesses on day one?
Well, those are the ones we're closed. Other businesses in Georgia are still currently opening under the order that I have now, and we're coming down. I think that's what a lot of people don't understand, but you also have to give that fitness owner or that owner in a hair salon the ability to be able to be a partner in this fight that we're in.
That's C4.
You know, they're going to have to follow the strict guidelines. I would tell you that I imagine there'll be people in gyms that'll be a lot safer than they would be going to the grocery store or some of the other places of business that are part of the critical infrastructure that's been designated at the federal level. You know, this is going to take some common sense.
This is going to take some common sense. Kind of common sense where he didn't realize that asymptomatic individuals could spread the virus.
Whatever it's called.
He was unaware of, even though we knew about that since January. And the kind of common sense that would tell you that nail salons and, hair salons can practice social distancing somehow.
I think it's lesion.
Yeah, I was amazed a few weeks back when we found out that he just found out that asymptomatic individuals could spread the disease. I think a follow-up question would be, does he still know? I'm not sure. I think that he's forgotten since the beginning of the month. And he made an argument there that people would be safer working out at the gym than they would at a grocery store, which sort of reminds me of the arguments where people are like, well, less people have died of this disease than die of the flu. I don't think these people get that it's not like the worst thing is the only thing.
Up this
round. Yeah, maybe you'd be safer at the gym than at the supermarket, but you still have to go to the supermarket. You can't eat your weights. So now you're going to go to both of those things. Okay, the coronavirus deaths.
Somebody diffused behind me when I get in bomb sight, and then I'll just sit.
Both of them, and so the person who gets their nails done and then gets a cool calf tattoo also has to buy groceries. Only now they might not just be leaving the grocery store or something, they might be bringing something that they got in a tattoo parlor that they didn't need to be at.
When you said yeah, I know, it's amazing. And by the way, just to emphasize that point you made about the regular flu, the flu as we've known it, in addition to coronavirus, this is something that the CDC director is very concerned about because, believe it or not, we got lucky in that the number of flu cases was already declining when the number of coronavirus cases began to increase, right? So what happens in our healthcare system if people are suffering from both simultaneously? And so Robert Redfield, who's the CDC director, said there's a possibility that the assault of the virus on our nation next winter will actually be more difficult than the one we just went through. Redfield said that the United States was spared a much worse COVID-19 outbreak because the coronavirus hit the nation when the seasonal flu was already on the decline. Had they hit at the same time, he was quoted as saying, it could have been really, 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 really difficult in terms of health capacity. And we do have this for-profit healthcare system where hospitals have decided that it's not profitable to have the number of beds we need in case a pandemic hits. And so we weren't prepared in so many different ways. But luckily, I guess, I mean, this is the silver lining, the number of seasonal flu cases was on the decline when coronavirus became an issue.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks. Really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships.
Trump is known for his ridiculous and debunked conspiracy.
There's on top of stairs.
One of them being this conspiracy that the coronavirus was developed by these mad scientists in a Chinese lab. The intelligence community has already come out to say that this is not a human-made virus. But it doesn't matter because Donald Trump has taken it upon himself to allege that that's not the case. Take a look.
must recover the diffuser.
But yeah, we have people looking at it very, very strongly. Scientific people, intelligence people, and others.
What gives you a high degree of confidence that this originated from the Wuhan Institute of Virology?
I can't tell you that. I'm not allowed to tell you that.
Several sources tell CNN that top administration officials have been pushing the U.S. intelligence agencies for evidence to support that theory. So far, the intelligence community has not come to any conclusion, saying today in a remarkable statement that all they know is that the virus came from China and that it is not man-made or genetically modified. The intelligence community will continue to rigorously examine emerging information and intelligence, the statement said,
and of course I'm the last
whether the outbreak began through contact with infected animals or if it was the result of an accident at a laboratory in Wuhan.
So this conspiracy theory, like this attempt to make Chinese scientists the bad guys in this whole case, like they developed some crazy virus and they released it into the world. That's not what happened. That's exactly
that was when
what the intelligence community said. They're trying to figure out whether this was based on some accident that occurred within the lab, or if it was really something that happened from someone maybe, being exposed to the virus outside of the lab, maybe at one of these wet markets. That's come up. So they're still investigating this. But what I find problematic, John, is that CNN's also reporting that a number of top officials in the Trump administration have pushed U.S. intelligence agencies looking into the origin of the novel coronavirus to hunt for evidence linking the virus to a Chinese laboratory.